Alright, the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles will go down as one of the greatest teams ever. But just how good is up for debate. So grab some popcorn and a drink and let's go back through all the crazy ups and downs of Philly's wild ride, featuring every bit of news, the storylines, and the doubters that fueled their second Super Bowl. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? The Eagles' Super Bowl run was one of the most dominant in NFL history, thanks to a truly remarkable ground game, lights-out defense, and an underrated passing attack, leaving some to suggest the group of players could be a top 5 team of all time.
I firmly believe when you look at our team that we had last year, I know we're not looking too far into the past, but our team last year, I think we're a top 5 team of all time.
Top 5 team of all time, that's big.
Listen, I really think when we look back on that 10 to 15 years and we're all old, reflecting on our glory days, people don't give us enough credit.
You know, we could argue exactly where they rank, but before we get there, let's just take a look at all the things that maybe we've forgotten, relive the moments, and I'm curious at the end of this video, you guys let me know what you think. Like, rewind back to first getting Saquon Barkley, and there were a lot of people, myself included, who did not see that as a possibility. Although despite the superstar acquisition, it wasn't like Philly ran away with it from the start, going 2-2 in their first 4 games. Granted, I don't think anyone was having sleepless nights quite like Giants owner John Mara.
I'm going to have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that. As I've told you, just being honest. I've been around enough players, but he's the most popular player we have by far.
Poor guy probably didn't sleep the entire season because the 2K Say campaign just got worse and worse, or better for us, but worse in his instance as the season went along. With it starting with the Eagles opener versus the Packers in Brazil, where after Jalen Hurts struggled with some turnovers early in Kellen Moore's new system, QB1 eventually found 26 on an 18-yard wheel route to take the lead, which happened to be the longest touchdown catch by an Eagles running back in nearly 6 years, and was one of 3 scores on the night for Saquon, making him the first player with 3 trips to pay dirt on the opening day since Terrell Owens in 2004. For the record, a year that the Eagles also ended up making the Super Bowl, leaving many to not help but wonder what kind of magic this squad was really going to have. Especially because Philly's O-line was already insane, but the addition of the Mountain and Mekhi Becton was just unfair, and very clearly made Saquon's life much easier.
The O-line setting me up, making me look better than I actually am. And it doesn't hurt to have Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith. You know, I'm probably on a scouting report, I'm probably not even top 3 you got to worry about.
Not exactly a surprise, but we found out that was false when Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley admitted his main priority had been to shut down Barkley. Yet as the league would soon find out, that's much easier said than done.
You lose that battle. You lose that battle 9 times out of 10.
Saquon was seemingly reintroducing himself to the NFL, but he wasn't the only one to make his presence felt, as rookie cornerback Quinyon Mitchell proved to be locked down in his NFL debut, registering 3 pass breakups and a passer rating of 66 on 9 targets. And considering Q got reps all preseason against A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith, it wasn't as big of a surprise to see him ready for the moment.
The moment's never too big for Q. And I've seen that from Q from the very beginning. Obviously, have a special relationship with Q's college football coach, was my college roommate. So he told me there's everything there is to know, and told Howie everything there is to know about Q. And so we were so comfortable taking this guy because not only the play, but because he's not phased.
Now, I give Q a ton of credit, but I will say from week 1, the most hype thing for me was probably what happened with the linebacker spot. Because not only was Devin White an unexpected scratch who didn't even travel to Brazil, but Zack Baun recorded 15 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, 2 hurries, and 1 tackle for loss, along with the best coverage efficiency rating on the entire team. Plus, Nakobe Dean showed out in a big way as well. Overall, it was a promising week 1 as the Eagles and Packers traded blows on a sorry excuse for a football field, with the slipping and sliding happening all over the place. But ultimately, Philly was able to come away with the 34-29 win. However, even with all those points, a lot of the concern was the Birds' lackluster offense at times, combined with Jalen Hurts' indecisiveness. Yet the positive is that when it comes to his pass struggles versus the blitz, Hurts sent a message to the league.
I know the notion out there, and bring it. We'll respond.
All right, so while the Eagles had an answer for handling that pressure, it was very much the opposite when it came to the Eagles trying to generate pressure for opposing quarterbacks, something that definitely reared its ugly head in Week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons, where the Birds suffered the 7th most improbable loss in the NFL since 2016. For real, Philly had a 99.3% chance of winning the game, being up 3 with 146 remaining, only to lose it after one of the most untimely drops ever. allowing Kirk Cousins to go 6 plays and 70 yards in basically 30 seconds, thanks to zero pass rush, shoddy pass defense, and not very promising late-game play calling either. Yeah, it wasn't great, and it's understandable that a lot of the PTSD set in from the following year.
Nothing has changed. Nothing. They had the game in their hands, okay, and they blew it, which is something that they've been doing a little bit more regularly than we suspected.
FYI, in case you didn't remember, that blown lead to Atlanta gave Philly the most blown leads with less than 2 minutes to go out of every team in the league over the last calendar year. Obviously not good, but the most alarming part was probably the defensive line, as Falcons running back Bijan Robinson regularly ripped off big runs to the tune of 6.9 yards per carry, with both he and running back Tyler Algier averaging nearly 3 yards before even getting touched in the game. Yeah, there was a reason through 2 weeks that Philly's run defense ranked dead last in terms of yards per carry. Still, as bad as that is, Vic Fangio's bend but don't break defense did more than its fair share, consistently holding Atlanta to field goals instead of allowing scores. It's just unfortunately, the Eagles' offense, despite getting the lead at half, could only muster 7 points on 4 possessions at the intermission. But after getting down 5 at the end of the third, the D really put the clamps on, pitching a shutout in the fourth quarter to allow Jalen Hurts and the offense to take a 21-15 lead late in the game. Again, not the greatest performance, but they were also missing A.J. Brown, who had ended up suffering a hamstring injury in the Packers game and actually would end up missing multiple weeks. However, the MIA that didn't make much sense was the $50 million pass rusher Bryce Huff, with Agent Zero living up to that nickname for all the wrong reasons. Seriously, through 2 games, Huff only recorded 1 assisted tackle along with 0 sacks, 0 pressures, and 0 quarterback hits. Although the most alarming part might have been hearing him admit he was still trying to adjust to the new scheme and didn't feel very comfortable.
No, don't like that.
Well, hindsight's 2020, and we ended up finding out that Bryce actually wanted to be traded away from Philly all the way back in training camp, so, we kind of should have seen this coming. But back to the Falcons game, nearly everyone seems to have an opinion on if the Eagles should have run it on 3rd and 3 instead of passing it. Although no matter which side you were on, the play was there to be made, it just wasn't executed.
Dropped the ball. Let my team know today. Shouldn't have the defense in that position. Made that catch, game's over. Relax, get back to my old habits, and just gotta go back and get back to work.
We can't just be so predictable that we're going to say, hey, every 3rd and 3, if you're in 4-down mode, that you're going to run the football. That's just not realistic in this league. There's too many good coaches in this league. Hey, it didn't work in this particular one, and I'd like to have those back.
That was a tough one to swallow, but I bet if I'd told you in that moment that that would be the last game that the Eagles lost at home all season, you might not have believed me. Heck, you might have doubted Sirianni even keeping his job the entire season after the heartbreak 22-21 loss. I mean, even after beating the New Orleans Saints in Week 3 to improve to 2-1, Fire Sirianni started trending on social media, with the belief that the head coach was only going to make this thing self-implode.
Are you mad at me?
Look, it goes without saying that it takes a lot to get to that reaction following a win. However, trailing 3-0 with 14 seconds left in the first half and it being 4th down at the Saints' 15, conventional wisdom says to take the points and go into the half tied. Yet instead of going that route, Sirianni decided to run a fake tush-push that got stopped, resulting in the Eagles being held scoreless in the first half for the first time in 7 years. So the comments suggesting the NFL needing to look into Sirianni's Caesars gambling app for who he took on that one was kind of a fair point after that call.
He said there was something in it for me, on my own.
Yo, what the?
Don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again.
I called that play at the end of the half. Kellen did not. I called it.
Why?
That's what I thought was best for the football team in that particular case. That was my decision. I did it. It didn't work. And we'll get better. I'll get better from it.
In the end, we all know how this thing turned out by refusing to kick a couple earlier field goals, only to then ask Jake Elliott to go out cold and try a 60-yarder late in the fourth quarter was a bit of a head-scratcher. Of course, the struggles were on several members of the offense, with Jalen Hurts turning the ball over 2 more times, once on an ill-advised throw and then another time when he was sacked. And for those counting, making it 12 straight games that Philly hadn't won the turnover battle. For the record, the 3rd longest streak in franchise history at that point, but it actually ended up getting to 15 games. Anyway, the offense just looked out of sorts in New Orleans, which again kind of makes sense seeing as though they were still missing A.J. Brown. Plus, Lane Johnson ended up suffering a concussion early, causing him to miss most of the game. And then later, DeVonta Smith was subjected to a cheap shot after the whistle that resulted in Smitty being out for the rest of the game as well.
Anybody, when you say that, it sucks and it hurts, but especially Smitty, the way he comes to work, the way he prepares, and how much he means to this team. It was a tough loss. It was tough to see him down like that in that moment. We all made sure we said a prayer for him, both sides, and like I said, for us, the thing we did right after that, we locked in and we said, come on, trust each other and let's get this done for Smitty. And sometimes it just works like that.
It took almost 3.5 quarters to get on the board, but Saquon put the exclamation point on the game with a 65-yard touchdown run on the very next play, putting the Birds up 4 and completely changing the morale of the squad.
I mean, Saquon Barkley, man. I'm sorry, pardon my language. Saquon Barkley, man.
In that moment, DeVonta goes down and then Saquon pops that run. How do you kind of flip the script and then take that was, play?
I mean, that was kind of like got your back, you know. Saquon made a statement with that play. Right after that, it was kind of like, don't worry, man, I got your back, Smitty. We're going to make a play, and oh, man, he made a play.
17 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. When Philly needed it most, Saquon stepped up. And so did Dallas Goedert, thanks to the tight end stepping up with his career-best game of 10 catches for 170 yards. Although the biggest and most important one was on 3rd and 16 with just over a minute to play, as Goedert converted a catch-and-run 61 yards to eventually set up a score for the Eagles to win 15-12. Like, I realized we were only 2 games into the season, but New Orleans had scored 40-plus points in each of their first 2 games, naturally being ranked as the highest scoring offense in the league. So for Vic Fangio's unit to shut them down in New Orleans and allow just 12 points, 213 yards, and 3.1 yards per carry was a huge turnaround from the first 2 weeks of the season. Also, not gonna lie, it was cool to see former Saints players Zack Baun and C.J. Gardner-Johnson show out at their former home stadiums. Granted, not all the defensive players performed well, with Bryce Huff getting benched and only playing 18 snaps. But at 2-1 and a drop away from being 3-0, the question had really become, what would this team look like if they played in all 3 phases?
Well, sometimes dreams can turn into nightmares, Lou.
Can't say I anticipated all 3 phases completely collapsing, especially after Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter talked about the squad having a 1-0 mentality following the Saints game. But as we saw with the temps in the mid-90s in Tampa Bay, the Birds were cooked before the game even started, with Bucs dominating by a score of 33-16 and 445 total yards of offense. Honestly, it did feel like just a terrible nightmare that we were really all hoping to wake up from.
Is this a dream? No, I thought not.
I'm sorry, but the first quarter scoring drought was completely inexcusable. By the way, Week 4 marked 4 straight weeks of not scoring a single touchdown in the first quarter, with Anthony DeBona noting only one team in NFL history had struggled with that type of a stat and been able to make the playoffs that season. So it's fair to say at 2-2 and Sirianni meddling in the offensive game plan, it had him on the hot seat heading into the bye week.
What would you say you do here?
We didn't coach well enough, we didn't play well enough, and that's always going to start with me. If we go out there and lay an egg and we're down 24-0, that's going to start on me. I didn't have the guys ready to start.
Look, they've lost 10 out of the last 13 games. So when you sit there and say, well, they're one of the best teams in the league, I don't know, being 3-10, that's kind of a stretch if you look at what's happened recently. But they do have a lot of good players, and they have a good team. I'm not saying they're not a good team. I'm just saying they haven't done very well lately. So maybe this bye week's a good time for them to reset.
I don't know of many who envisioned the bye week being exactly what this team needed, but the early bye week there was perfect timing. Remember, as bad as the offense was, they were without AJ, Smitty, and Lane Johnson in Tampa. And that's not to mention some of the defensive guys getting knocked out of the game as well. But the idea of getting those guys back and Nakobe Dean revealing that something happened during practice over the bye week that would have normally pulled a team apart, yet in this case it actually galvanized the group to get them closer, left a bit of promise. Still, the questions of can Jalen Hurts fix his turnover issues, he had 7 through 4 games, and also the lingering issue or questions of the pass rush were very ever-present. However, not only did the Eagles get some star power back for their home game against Cleveland, Vic Fangio made one of the best moves by making Cooper DeJean the full-time slot corner on defense. Meanwhile, Nick Sirianni came out of the bye after saying changes would be made, rocking his shaved head look.
Is he okay?
You know, it was hard to say in the moment. Because yes, the Birds did win coming out of the bye, but it was an underwhelming 20-16 win, featuring some sloppy special teams play and a team that couldn't quite piece it all together, where Sirianni was seen getting vocal with a fan afterward. Now, for the record, it turned out to be not that big of a deal, yet the optics of it made Sirianni apologize the following day. Overall, though, getting AJ, Smitty, and Lane back was exactly what this offense needed, and it helped QB1 up his level of play as well, since Jalen ended the game throwing for 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, and had 0 turnovers against Cleveland, which for those counting was the first time in 10 games that Hurts had not turned the ball over. Obviously great, but be that as it may, yes, that was just the Browns, and Philly's offense still couldn't score in the first quarter, and was kind of struggling all game, just not being able to find consistency. leaving Lane Johnson to serve up one of the most quotable phrases from the early part of the season.
I said I feel like a very concentrated offense.
1/2 teaspoon for fast, effective relief.
There's no doubt a lot of us agree with Lane's sentiments there, but at the same time, when you think about it, there was kind of a decent reason for why Philly's offense hadn't fully hit its stride yet, since technically that was only the second game A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith were both on the field. Plus, the offense hadn't been at full strength since the opener in Brazil, courtesy of Dallas Goedert suffering a hamstring injury, albeit not as bad as Jordan Mailata, who had to go on the IR due to the severity of the strain. Of course, up to this point, the Eagles hadn't had much of anything convincing, despite being 3-2. Although with an admitted focus to make their identity a heavy run-first team after the offensive line made their feelings known to Kellen Moore, you could start to see that change. Where in Week 7 on the road against the New York Giants, Saquon Barkley destroyed his old team with a season-high 176 rushing yards. In fact, Philly's new Giant Killer actually outgained the G-Men with 187 total yards compared to just 119 for New York. Yeah, you heard me right, 119 yards, but to make matters worse for John Mara, the 176 rushing yards from 2K Say were the most he ever ran for in that stadium in his entire career. It was just in midnight green this time.
I'm going to have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that.
Oh, boy, turns the corner, and there he goes! Barkley has it in a crowd. They're going to push, and he is in for a touchdown!
Extremely happy. He held it in all week. He tried his best. If he said otherwise, he lying. But I'm excited for him. I'm happy for him. You know, he deserves it.
As great as that was, and Saquon putting up the second most rushing yards versus a former team in NFL history, personally, it was seeing his mindset being so close to a record and where his priorities were that meant the most.
You're 13 yards away from your career high. I would love for you to get that, but that's up to you. I just don't want. I'm going to take out all the starters if they don't score.
You good? Let them eat.
You sure?
Yeah, good.
You sure?
I promise.
I'll listen to me. I want you to do it if you want to do it.
It's all good. I'd rather see the young boys eat.
I know you guys don't know me enough yet, but numbers don't do it for me. Of course, I want to be great, and I'm all about my legacy. But at the end of the day, I'm all about the team, and I'm happy to see Kenny get out there and see young Will get some reps.
Every bit of that was a breath of fresh air, and honestly, we talk about the culture of this team. It was vastly needed. Heck, it had been 16 games since Philly won by 2 possessions, and the Birds hadn't won back-to-back games since November of the prior year. So with the offense showing out and the defense forcing 6 straight punts to start the game, along with sacking the Giants 8 times, the vibes of the squad was back.
Well, I'll just say this, since nobody asked how great the defense played. They played great.
In case you didn't realize it or have forgotten, that game was the first time since 2017 that the Eagles had held back-to-back opponents without an offensive touchdown. And yes, we're talking about the Giants and the Browns, but this is the NFL, so I don't care who it is. A 28-3 win is an impressive feat, which moved the Birds to 4-2. Granted, the number 7 defense in the league was about to get their biggest test so far on the road in Cincinnati. After all, prior to that matchup, the Eagles hadn't ever won in Cincinnati. And speaking of 7, the Bengals marked the 7th game in a row that the Eagles failed to score a single point in the first quarter. And it looked a little scary seeing how easily Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase were carving up the Eagles' defense early, as they got on the board thanks to a 17-play, 70-yard drive to start the game. However, after that point, it was pretty much all Philly, where they outscored the Bengals 37-10 from then on. And kudos to Jalen Hurts, who not only outplayed Joe Burrow with 4 total touchdowns, but was also the highest-graded player in the game. Like, not only did the Eagles win the turnover battle and QB1 play mistake-free, but for a team that had really struggled to protect the football, they were the only unit to not turn the football over in the month of October. So again, for the doubters of Hurts, they kind of started to look silly.
Now who looks stupid?
I'm just saying, having Brett Coleman recognize the Eagles were turning a corner on offense was a scary prospect for the rest of the league. After all, this was a guy who called the 2023-2024 Sirianni version a high school offense.
So the Eagles actively choosing not to use motion to control or influence DBs into giving space and making life easier for A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith, that's just one of the weirdest coaching decisions that I've seen all season. Again, it's almost like they want to make the game as hard on themselves as they possibly can. Their entire philosophy is just lining up and trying to out-talent everybody.
Look, it may have taken 8 weeks, but the Kellen Moore offense and adjustments there were certainly paying dividends now at 5-2. I mean, since when have we seen a Philly squad ranked 10th in under center rate? I'll save you the research on that one. The answer there was never in the 21st century prior to Moore. But it makes sense that those changes really helped the play-action game. And it's no wonder why so many players were supportive of the new scheme.
When you're able to be the imposer, I think that says a lot about what you are offensively. There are multiple ways to impose, right? You can do that from the gun. You can do that in the pass game. You can do that in the run game, the action game, whatever it is, as long as you're in full control. And so I think that's more so of a mentality that we're trying to develop, and I'm trying to push, to be honest, of it's about what we do, not about what anyone else does.
When you're able to run the ball effectively, it opens up so much. First of all, wears down the interior defenders, weakens the pass rush, puts the backers in a predicament. So, the more we can effectively run block and set up play actions, just opens up everything.
Reminder, this was all without Jordan Mailata at left tackle, Mekhi Becton at right guard, and Dallas Goedert at tight end. And that doesn't even get to Darius Slay leaving the game early to a groin injury. Yet as we realized, the more the season went on, the depth of the Eagles squad was clearly something special. For example, Isaiah Rodgers made a huge play to create an interception for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Plus, Cooper DeJean made his presence felt on a critical fourth down stop versus Jamar Chase. Meanwhile, this was the game that Zack Baun really started to gain national notoriety for his play at linebacker. Because come on, Fangio's defense may have been up and down early, but since the bye week, they had been the best defense in the NFL. With the scariest part being they were only getting better. Of course, as unexpected as all that was, what Saquon Barkley did in Week 9 left us all speechless.
It was the best play I've ever seen.
I saw the spin. How the did he see him? I don't know, man. Some guys are blessed.
I've never in my life ever seen a man do that. I don't even know how you plan that in your head. I don't even know how you think of that. But I've never seen a man jump that high at the weight he is and the size he is. It was just incredible. So probably one of the best plays I've ever seen in my life.
Crazy. I ain't never seen nothing like it.
I ain't gonna lie. I felt like a fanboy for a quick second. I had to snap back to who I was, but I was like, yeah, that was crazy.
What I think's so cool, there's going to be kids all over the country and all over Philadelphia. I really think about that, trying to make that play and talking about that play and like simulating that play as they play backyard football or pee-wee football. Like, they ain't going to be able to make it because that play I think he's the only one in the world that could do that.
That's one of those plays that I think we'll all remember where we were and what we were doing whenever Saquon did that. I mean, it's just unthinkable. Like, even Madden didn't have that move in the video game until 2K say did that, and then they released an update. However, as ridiculous as Barkley's feats were against Jacksonville, they seemed to set the tone for some other unreal plays. Like Jahan Dotson's 36-yard catch, which, believe it or not, actually doubled his season total in receiving yards on one play. Making us wonder, maybe Jalen Hurts will start trusting Dotson after a play like that.
People tend to forget that, I was a first-round pick, that I can make plays. It's just because I'm the third receiver in this offense. I don't get a lot of opportunities, so I got to make the most of them when they come. But I have the ultimate confidence in myself when the ball's in the air that I'm going to come down with it.
Say what you will about him, but he stayed ready, and after making that play, it did seem like he won over some of his doubters.
Yeah, I got to rethink this whole thing. I didn't trust it before, but I got to say now I do.
Either way, a guy that we all trusted and one that had really hit his stride the last couple games was DeVonta Smith, as the guaranteed 1 + 6 = 7 connected late in the fourth quarter, with Smitty deciding to go all Slim Reaper with an insane one-handed grab. By the way, the curse of not scoring in the first quarter was finally broken 9 weeks into the season, courtesy of a Saquon Barkley 20-yard pass from Jalen Hurts. And let's be honest, it looked like the Birds were going to run away with this one when they took a 22-0 lead in the third quarter. Except the Jaguars took full advantage of some very strange decisions to go for two. And the NFL blatantly whiffing on a down-by-contact call to put the Jags right back in the game. Which is why, despite all the crazy plays during that game, with Trevor Lawrence at the Philly 13 and 1st and 10, Nakobe Dean made one of the plays of the year. And I'll admit, I was about to have a heart attack.
Four-man pressure. Back goes Trevor, looking left, end zone. That's going to be...
Oh,
Nakobe Dean!
Nakobe Dean! Yeah! He didn't get a sack, but he got a pick! That's ball game, baby! Nakobe Dean, out of all the people that I would have said, Nakobe Dean with an interception? Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh!
After I got beat on it, talking to Kenny and Jalen, in training camp, that's the primary route.
So I knew that if he thought he liked the matchup, he was going to throw it.
Who would have thought Philly would have the best linebacker tandem in the NFL? But that's exactly what they had, because there was also Zack Baun, who had an interception earlier in the game, giving the Birds an INT from two separate linebackers in the same game for the first time since before Christ.
It's been too long.
Look, I don't know what the fellas ate before the game, but what we witnessed on Week 9 was unbelievable, and somehow they eked out a 28-23 win, with the win improving them to 6-2, and also for those counting, Jalen Hurts went another game without turning the football over while having one of his best games of the season.
You know why? You say I can't.
The longer time goes on, you realize if Jalen Hurts hasn't done something, that doesn't mean that he can't do it, it's just a matter of time. Just like in Week 10 when Philly took Dallas out behind the woodshed thanks to the ferocious defense to win 34-6 and improve to 7-2.
Bobble snap. That's the call. Elliott, the ball pops out. 3rd and 9. Ball's back. Knocked out of his hands. Back to Ferguson. He coughed it up and lofts it, and he's intercepted.
To be fair, the Eagles did start out a little bit shaky, regained themselves, got some composure, and then marched on and destroyed the Cowboys. And I don't know if you realize this, but that helped give Saquon his first win against the Cowboys in his entire NFL career. The funny part is the fact that Mike McCarthy said before the game that he believed the familiarity of Kellen Moore would give them the upper hand. Yet I don't know, maybe some self-reflection about who they were would have been appropriate.
Hey, are you Dirty Mike and the boys?
I said this immediately after the game, but sometimes these jokes write themselves. Like whenever Trey Lance shared what was happening to Dallas's season on national television.
How you know who we are?
You gotta admit, Jerry Jones did say all in before the season started. I just kind of thought he was talking about something else. Anyway, that was the first win at AT&T Stadium for the Birds since 2017. And the ironic part to that is the last time prior to the game that the Eagles shut out a team in the second half and scored at least 20 points was in 2017 against, yes, again, Dallas. So yeah, kind of a good omen at that point. But to make matters worse, or depending on who you are, Philly handed Jerry's Clowns their 4th straight loss at home, moving Dirty Mike's boys' point differential to -94, which ranked as the 13th worst out of any team in any season since 2000.
You know what that's called when they do that? It's called a soup kitchen. It's pretty rough stuff.
I mean, with Vic Fangio's group only allowing 49 passing yards the entire game, what did you think was going to happen? Well, okay, we did get excuses with the sun playing a factor because it made things pretty difficult to see for both sides. Yet there is a curtain they can use, and Jerry just refused to do so.
Couldn't see the ball. Couldn't see the ball at all. The sun. What? Yes, 1,000%.
You talked to Jerry about that?
I mean, y'all doing my job right now.
So we do know where the damn sun's going to be in our own stadium.
Why not put the curtains up? Why not mitigate that?
What?
The sun and see these
Let's
eyes.
just tear the damn stadium down and build another one. You kidding me?
Shut up about the sun. Shut up about the sun.
But it's not, you don't have to go that way.
Everybody's got the same thing. Every team that comes in here has the same issues. They know where the sun's going to be. So every team has the same thing.
So is it more on Mike not understanding where the sun is and not calling
I'm saying the world knows where the sun is. You get to know that almost a year in advance. So someone asked me about the sun, and what about the sun? Where's the moon?
It's the gift that just keeps on giving. Sure, there's ultimately a point that could be made of the Cowboys not being at full strength. However, the Washington Commanders were up next in Week 11, and both sides were pretty much fully healthy. And with the Commies having a less-than-average defense, it was surprising for the Eagles to only muster 6 points through 3 quarters of football. Granted, Jake Elliott did miss 2 other field goals during that stretch, as well as an extra point later in the game. But thankfully, the Fangio defense was able to slow down what was a top-5 offense in Jaden Daniels while holding them to a season-low 18 points and 264 yards.
The Eagles defense put on a clinic on an offense that's been going up and down the field against every other team.
3rd and 5. Look out. Down he goes.
He's being chased. He's running. He's being pushed. He's knocked out of bounds. The Eagles take over on downs.
Daniels fires over the middle, and it is Reed Blankenship.
I think at the beginning of the season and preseason, a lot of people were underestimating this defense and the guys we have, the pieces we have. And we set out to change the narrative and show that this is an electrifying group right here. This is what we do, and we're not going to back down from anybody.
Kudos to those of you who remained patient and stuck with the defense. Because since the bye week, the Eagles only allowed 12.6 points per game, 211.3 yards per game, and just 6 total touchdowns. keeping them on pace to be the first Philly defense to rank number 1 in a season since Bud Carson's group in 1991. You know, the one that featured 5 Pro Bowlers in Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons, Seth Joyner, and Eric Allen. I mean, that group speaks for itself, but let's be honest, though, you could kind of see this thing building.
The defense is just playing at an unbelievable level, and I feel like that's kind of what sets this team apart from teams of the past, even the 2022 team, because they had a ton of sacks and whatnot, but they weren't really shutting teams down like this defense is, but it's incredible to watch.
If it wasn't obvious already, the fact that Quinyon Mitchell didn't even have the ball thrown his way during the game against Terry McLaurin sent quite the message.
He's a good corner. I think, he plays well. He doesn't really play like a rookie.
There's a reason Q started being called Quinyon, and that game played a huge part. And the same for Bald Eagle Zack Baun, who came up with back-to-back stops after Washington head coach Dan Quinn's confusing decision to go for it in field goal range late, where thankfully Saquon Barkley eventually took over the game, ripping off runs of 23 and 39 yards to seal the deal and move to 8-2. And then, not gonna lie, but it felt like he pretty much picked up where he left off the next week in Los Angeles.
And he's gonna go all the way. What a night. What a season. What a player.
That game was one of the greatest individual performances that Philly has ever had, as Barkley ran into the record books with 255 rushing yards and 302 total yards, meaning just 12 weeks through the season, he already had 60 more yards than he'd ever gotten in a season with the Giants. So it only made sense that a Sunday night football game like that moved his odds from 60-1 to 6-1 to win the MVP.
MVP! MVP! Saquon MVP, baby!
He definitely ran himself smack dab into the MVP conversation. If he runs for over 2,100 yards and break Eric Dickerson's long-standing record, he absolutely deserves the MVP.
I mean, like every week, he is doing something new that is breaking records.
I'm officially the first things first Eagles guy.
Coming into the season, I said, can he plus up the Eagles in the same way that McCaffrey plussed up a championship quality team in the 49ers? And the answer is most assuredly yes. 302 total yards against the Rams. That's a single game franchise record. He's doing it all. 5 games with 140 or more rush yards and 1 or more rushing touchdown in 2024. That's the most in the National Football League. It's tied for the most such games through a player's first 11 games in NFL history. 4 of the previous 5 instances resulted in the player winning most valuable player.
By the way, in that game, the Rams lined up with the box or loaded the box 35% of the time, and Saquon still averaged 12.7 yards per carry.
No, that's impossible.
I'll be honest, I knew Saquon was good, but the impact that he had on the team far surpassed any of my expectations. Although, for the record, not his.
To be honest, I'm not surprised. I didn't know, I would have this much success, and I keep thinking that God's been blessing me a lot. A ton, to be honest, but I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful for the fresh start. A big reason why I wanted to come here. Me and my family and my fiance, I've had a conversation with. I think this is a spot where I can, kind of rewrite my story and feel like I can show everyone the type of player that I feel like that I can be and was meant to be. It's working out right now.
He's a hell of a player, and I said that. After the Jacksonville game, and how blessed he is to do some of the things he's capable of, and you accompany that. When you accompany an issue with other issues, you become a problem.
At that point, everything just seemed to be clicking. Heck, the defense held LA to one of their season lows, registered 5 sacks, and once again, you had guys like Cooper DeJean and Isaiah Rodgers consistently making big-time plays. By the way, one of my favorite personal storylines was the fact that Sean McVay said that he'd prepared extra to get ready for Vic Fangio. And if you know anything, Fangio has McVay's number. So it made it that much better when every single third down that LA faced, they were unable to convert, going 0 for 8.
I practiced them, and now I don't look like I got practiced them.
There you go. That got the team to 9-2 and winners of 7 straight. However, as great as all that was, Sirianni made sure to offer the team an important reminder following the win.
I want to keep it at this. Everybody watched that game, and everyone's calling you and telling you how fucking good you are. We have not done shit. Put your head down and work. It's the work that's got us here. You guys have been playing your ass off, and it's the work that's got us here. All right, let's pray.
Let's just say, hindsight being 2020, the timing of that speech was perfect. After all, just about everything was going right. That is, until we got a couple disappointing injury updates.
Tore my tricep.
Oh, really? Yeah, I got chipped. Got hit in my elbow, tore my tricep. But man, hey, like I told the boys, man, we got the mission. The mission's still the mission. You know, we pour everything we can into this game. You know, if I say I trust God, I trust God. So, man, I'm just enjoying myself. I'm about to enjoy this little rehab, and then I'm about to enjoy leading this team, you know, the rest of the year. As soon as I can be back out there, I'm gonna be out there. But man, boy, heck, man, we was having fun out there.
Man, talk about a gut punch. That one was incredibly hard to come to terms with. Because not only were the Eagles without one of their biggest leaders on the team in BG, but they were already thin at pass rush. Remember, Bryce Huff had been placed on the IR with a wrist injury. Meanwhile, it was later revealed that Darius Slay had suffered a concussion, DeVonta Smith was dealing with a nagging hamstring injury, and linebacker/fullback Ben Van Sumeren suffered a season-ending knee injury in practice that week. So yeah, not exactly the best recipe for success having to go to Baltimore the following game. And you can't necessarily blame odds makers for putting Philly as a 4-point underdog headed into the matchup, especially how the game started with the Birds going down early 9-0. But as we'd learned by then, some things are just unstoppable.
Hey, yo!
The Saquon.
Now they're back to it. Saquon taking off. Get out. Here it comes.
Something ain't right, yo. First down. Saquon. Oh.
Watch out, man. Here come that fool. He's packing.
Oh, here he goes. Barkley at the 10, the 5, and the touchdown.
Like late in the game, like we were telling him to go on, put your cape on. Put your cape on. Like hurry up, let him out. And he did exactly that.
For the record, Saquon ended up being the first player to record 100 yards or more against the Ravens all season, which is impressive enough by itself, but also you think about the fact that the Eagles were missing some of those other key offensive players, and it makes it even that much more impressive. Of course, seeing the analysts take Baltimore in the pregame should have been the telltale sign. Even though, yes, Vic Fangio's last two matchups against John Harbaugh had resulted in an average of 40 points allowed, but he also didn't necessarily have the type of squad that Philly gave him, as the Godfather's unit held the Ravens to 1 for 4 on their red zone trips and limited them to just 19 points in the game. FYI, that meant that after playing the Bengals, Commanders, and Ravens, who were all top 4 offenses, the Eagles hadn't allowed any of them to score 20 points. Something the fellas weren't shy about the answer why.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys in this defense and this team have been underdogs for a long time, having that chip on their shoulder. I know I have, I know Nakobe has, and a lot of these linebackers are. And just playing aggressive. We want to grind on teams and we want to wear them out, and that's what we did.
I think it just comes from everybody. We understand, that we want. That's what we want to be. We want to be the most physical team on the field every week. And that starts in practice. We're wearing pads on Wednesdays. Going through our tackle circuit, so we can come out and tackle and play physical on Sundays.
They had to match ours. We know we're a physical team. We know they're a physical team. And that was our message going in, that they got to match our physicality. And again, that's a very physical team. That's a well-coached team. That's a team with a lot of good players. But, yeah, I'd like the question rephrased a little differently.
Now, obviously, that physicality does not come without a price. Because on top of the injuries they already had, Reed Blankenship missed most of the game, and Dallas Goedert injured his knee to where he ended up having to go back on the IR. Yet just like most weeks, the defense lived up to its #1 ranking, and the offense just made enough plays, as Hurts overcame an inefficient start to lead the Eagles to their 10th win of the season. Although the image stuck in everyone's mind from that game had to be Cooper DeJean's exclamation point he put on the game when bringing down Derrick Henry. Because yeah, you could start seeing critics coming around to the idea of this Philly team being legit.
This Eagles team is better than the Eagles Super Bowl team. Not meaning I'm guaranteeing they will win a Super Bowl, but this Eagles team is better than the Super Bowl team.
Honestly, the biggest area that we all kept questioning was the first quarter starts. Could they score in the first quarter? I mean, it hardly made sense. The Birds were dead last in first quarter efficiency, but then ranked second in the league after the first quarter on offense. By the way, I do have to give a ton of credit to special teams because that was probably their best game of the year against the Ravens, since they forced multiple missed field goals, and punter Braden Mann had 6 punts on an average of 50 yards and 5 of those down to inside the 20-yard line.
I think we really won the game in the kicking game. Playing special teams, I know how much that can affect games, and we fielded all of our punts. They didn't, and it cost.
The Eagles were outgained by over 100 yards and still beat the Ravens pretty handily. Like, say what you will about other phases, but this was a game where it became obvious how many different ways Sirianni's group could win in. Of course, after multiple primetime games against playoff teams, having the 3-9 Carolina Panthers come into town seemed to bring up a little bit of a letdown game. And that was even after getting Slay and Smitty back into the lineup, where the Birds somewhat luckily got out of there with a 22-16 win. Now, the positive is that the win put them in the playoffs thanks to the Falcons losing to the Vikings and the Cardinals falling flat against the Seahawks.
Hey, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
That is what it felt like, and I get some of the notions of saying, well, if the team's going to play like this, then who even cares about the playoffs?
Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
To be fair, a little perspective here, the Chiefs also needed a last-second field goal to beat Carolina in Week 12, and the Bucs needed OT in Week 13 to get a dub, so the Panthers were a bit better than their record showed. Having said that, the Eagles left much to be desired. Despite Saquon Barkley breaking LaShawn McCoy's single-season franchise rushing record in just 13 games. Call it like it was, the defense looked soft, and Cooper DeJean very clearly got his welcome to the NFL moment from Adam Thielen, as he allowed 9 catches for 102 yards in the game to the vet. Meanwhile, on the offensive side, A.J. Brown didn't get his first target until the 126 mark in the second quarter, leading to Swole Batman to call out what I think most everyone realized.
The offense needs to improve on passing.
Everybody has a reason to want more, and it's a fair desire of being in fullness of what we can be, because we've done it before, and just got to build, got to progress, have to find a way to come together and come in sync.
In the end, this team showed that they're open to criticism, but also at the same time, they can come together for the betterment of the squad and move on. Plus, AJ wasn't wrong. I mean, had Xavier Legette held onto that pass from Bryce Young with 52 seconds left, it would have been a completely different story. Although the story that really took off following the nail-biting win was after BG miscommunicating about 1 and 11's relationship.
The person that's complaining need to be accountable. And I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he noticed. I don't know the whole story, but I know that 1 is trying. And I mean, 11 could be a little better with how he responds to things. And they was friends before this. It's like, man, but things have changed. And I understand that because life happens. But it's the business side that we have to make sure that we don't let the personal get in the way of the business. And that's what we got to do better as right now, because we know it's an issue. Everybody's seeing some things, but we need to be able to talk things out as men. You know what I'm saying? But we need to let personal stuff go and let's get right for this game, because, man, it's like a lot of stuff, most of the time it's just a conversation that just need to be had, but the person with the problem got to want to talk to the person other than others. Okay. That's all I'm saying.
Thankfully, BG ended up apologizing to the team and then even publicly said that he got some things wrong there. Unsurprisingly, though, the media continued to run with that storyline of Jalen and AJ at odds. So what better way than to start off Week 15 with a 5-yard touchdown pass and shut up the haters?
Hurts firing long, caught! Who else? A.J. Brown.
That was our moment to tell everybody to shut up, honestly.
So that's what y'all want to see, huh?
You want us to run it? We can run it. Yeah. You want us to pass it? How about that pass? Yeah.
For Jalen to put up those kind of numbers against the Steelers, who at the time were a 5th-ranked defense in the league, made quite the statement. As QB1 completed 25 of 32 passes for 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, and most importantly, had his fastest time to throw of the entire year. So with Saquon struggling to get things going on the ground, people were very quickly proven wrong about Jalen's ability.
Jalen Hurts is not the answer.
Is that who we're putting on right now?
We have a #1 defense, running back. Jalen Hurts is not the answer.
Big time win. Hurts balling out. Psych, he didn't do anything.
I think we should get a new quarterback. Maybe draft like Jackson Dart or like Jalen Miller.
That was an overreaction.
Living week to week makes people say some pretty crazy stuff, especially since the Eagles' 27-13 win over Pittsburgh moved them to 12-2 with 10 wins in a row. And by the way, that was a franchise record. And thanks to the Buffalo Bills knocking off the Detroit Lions, Philly was only 1 win away from taking the #1 seed in the NFC.
Feel that, Alan? Huh? That tingling in your balls, big metal butterflies fluttering around your stomach?
I'm going to pick them to win the Super Bowl. I don't even know what to make of them. They have the deepest roster in the league. They have young stars, stars in their prime, old stars. Only team in the league that has like 3 levels of greatness.
This team is ridiculous how good they are. By the way, the best part of their team,
is on the other side of the ball.
Is their defense. Are the Eagles the best team in the NFL, D. Wood?
Yes.
Now, yes, even though Pittsburgh did not have George Pickens in that game, it was still impressive to see Fangio's unit consistently control the game and really just hold down opposing offenses. As the Steelers managed only 163 total yards, 10 first downs, and 3.3 yards per rush. Which, in case you were curious, that was the lowest total Mike Tomlin's side had been held to since 2010. Granted, the fact that the Philly offense was able to hold on to the ball for the final 10 minutes and 29 seconds on a 21-play, 99-yard drive kind of makes things easier on the defense. And naturally, things got a little chippy on both sides because, it was the Battle of Pennsylvania, but it was impossible not to imagine what this team could be if they could stay healthy. I mean, the offense was clicking, the defense was firing on all cylinders, and the special teams was, at least respectable. And that carried over right into the road matchup with the Commanders, or at least the start of it did, since the Birds scored 21 points in the first quarter while forcing 4 turnovers in the first half and looked like it'd be a landslide. But give Washington some credit, they beat a dang good Philadelphia Eagles team. That was without its starting quarterback in Jalen Hurts essentially the entire game, without one of their best pass rushers for a half, without their starting safety for a half. Oh yeah, and had 3 of their best players drop the ball late in the game. Most notably, DeVonta Smith, who would have iced the game with 2 minutes left had he been able to hang on there.
I made all the tough catches there, and then the easy one I had, I dropped. It is what it is. Trust the game. Ain't nobody else's fault but mine.
You able to move on from this and obviously not let it weigh down on your shoulders too much?
That game over with. Ain't nothing I can do about it now.
Was it one of those where you just looked it in, or you?
I just dropped the ball. Okay. Ain't no teaching on it. Just catch the ball. It's simple.
I said it right after the game ended, but them winning might have been the best thing for the Eagles at that point, because that was actually the Commanders' first win against a playoff team, with Washington improving to 1-4 against such teams at the time. But come on, judging by how they celebrated afterward, it's like they'd won the Super Bowl. Regardless, yeah, it did put a damper on Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Kiss my ass. Kiss his ass. Kiss your ass. Happy Hanukkah.
Believe it or not, that win gave the Commanders a 10-5 record, which was their best start since 1991, where on the flip side, the Eagles, a 10-5 record, that would be their worst start since 2021. Now, I get it, that's probably what made the loss to the Commies feel even worse at the time, because, we're talking about history. That was the first time the Eagles had blown a 13-point fourth-quarter lead in 5 years, and they hadn't lost a game where they forced 5 takeaways since 1999. Now, sure, Jaden Daniels deserves a whole lot of credit, but seeing C.J. Gardner-Johnson get kicked out of the game for some made-up reason seemed a bit strange.
Man, what? Man, f*** them refs, man. Them refs wanted me out there. I ain't do shit anyway, man. Remember that? I ain't do shit. No, I ain't do shit.
I'm gonna have his back. He didn't say anything at all. I was right there, but when you're on the hot spot, things happen. But at the end of the day, I had my dude's back, and next man up.
It is sad that the NFL never gave a very legit reason for why CJ was disqualified. And I also don't think it's any coincidence that Philly began to struggle to get stops once he left. After all, different safety play changes up how a cornerback might play coverage as well, and Terry McLaurin got the better of Q from that point on.
He's a good young player, and I like me too. You know what I mean? One-on-one, so I knew he was squatting, and he squats a lot. You can do that when you got you can do that when you got the front four that they have, but he's a great player, man. I told him we're going to continue to see each other, we're going to continue to battle. But when I saw him squatting, I went over the cliff, and I was like, it's time. And I just knew Jaden would put it over my outside shoulder. And I try to work those tracking drills every single day at practice. So when you come out here, it's easy. But I like going against the best, man. I think he has a chance to be one of the best in the league. And I think I'm up there too. So we're going to keep working and see where we can go from here.
With all that being said, the Eagles could have and should have really still won the game. However, it was nice to see how much of an impact Jalen Hurts can make for the offense, especially when it comes to the running game. Since before he left, the ground game was dominant, but after QB1 exited, the Birds managed to have their worst efficiency rating on the ground all season.
They were kind of loading the box. We get it each week. The dynamic of Jalen definitely helps, though. But it kind of, in our situation, a lot of things that we do in our run game is designed with Jalen. So if it's kind of hard to continue to run the same stuff when he's not in there.
At 12-3 and not as much of a 1 seed to play for, the attention mostly shifted to when and will Jalen get healthy. Yet I should point out that a win versus the Cowboys would lock up the 2 seed for Philly. So with the boys coming to town and C.J. Gardner-Johnson back on the field, he wasted no time to get the job done, as he took Cooper Rush's pass in the first quarter back for a 69-yard interception return. Of course, Dallas quickly responded with a scoring drive of their own, but after that, it was all Eagles. Although I guess, according to Micah Parsons, 41-7 isn't really that big of a blowout.
You look at their play, they had 2 big runs, and
3 good deep shots. Other than that, we made them earn it, and you take away the scoreboard. It was about 5 plays that decide this game. And you hate to say that because it's a lot of football, but you know, the 2 deep shots to DeVonta Smith and the one to A.J. Brown, and then also DeVonta on that slant, you know, for the most part, we're making them earn it. 3 yards, 2 yards, 4.
You sound like you're making excuses. I really don't know what else you'd call it. Like going back to the archives, there's only been 2 other games in the history of the Philly and Dallas rivalry that have been more lopsided. First in 1961 at the Cotton Bowl when the Birds beat the Boys 43-7, and then of course the 44-6 onslaught to clinch the playoffs on the last day of the 2008 season. Yet in Week 17, the Eagles had a backup quarterback whose ribs were broken, and a third-string quarterback by the name of the Mormon Missile combined for 4 touchdowns en route to clinching the division. Something that's just kind of expected in the Philly culture.
Winning a division's always a special thing, and then our goals are much bigger.
Feels good. Kind of normal at this point. We expect more, you know, it's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm not going to downplay it, but like I said, at the end of the day, you're not going to get remembered for being the 2024 NFC Division champs. I'm happy. My first hat and T-shirt game. I didn't even know it was a thing, to be honest. So I'm happy to be part of that, and we did it as a team, but we all know what the goal is.
That was the mindset after sweeping Dallas for the first time since 2011. Now, it was pretty sweet to see Tanner McKee shine on 3 of 4 passing for 54 yards and 2 touchdowns. As the beatdown eventually led to a fight, however, the bigger fight might have been over what to do with Saquon. Since after getting over the 2,000-yard mark, many began to feel like 26 should go for Eric Dickerson's all-time record. I mean, after all, he was just 100 yards away from it.
Yeah, still not there. You know, still sorting through things right now at this particular moment.
I didn't come here and sign here just to, rush for 2,000 or break a record. I want to do something special, and it's meaning special with the team.
As you know by now, the Eagles decided to hold Saquon Barkley out of the Giants game, and that's even knowing that Saquon was leaning towards wanting to play and get the record. Was it a missed opportunity? Maybe, yet personally, you can't say enough about Barkley's constant willingness to sacrifice for the betterment of the team. Anyway, somewhere, I'm sure Giants owner John Mara was happy to see Saquon not playing in the final game, as the Eagles rested most of their starters to prep for the playoffs. Yet even doing that, Tanner McKee helped lead the Birds to a 14-win season and a 20-13 victory over the G-Men. And the other underrated aspect was that Jahan Dotson finally emerged with 7 catches for 94 yards, something that we saw build into the postseason. Now, who could have envisioned playing the Packers for the first game of the playoffs after we played them for the home opener in Brazil, but that's what happened. Although we did have some lingering rumors and trickery from both head coaches about how available their starting quarterbacks would be. Yet the real unexpected part was seeing Jahan Dotson be the recipient of the first touchdown pass from Jalen Hurts after linebacker Oren Burks forced a fumble on the opening kickoff. Seriously, after capitalizing there and eventually taking a 10-0 lead in the first quarter, it felt like the Birds might run away with it, especially with the way the defense was playing as they put pressure on Jordan Love all night, which was certainly saying something since the Packers entered as a top 5 offense in points, yards, and efficiency. And to put it more into context, the Packers were the toughest 7th seed that a 2-seed NFC teams ever had to face. Well, at least based on records, because since the 7th seed was introduced in 2020, the best record had been 9-8. So with Green Bay entering as an 11-win team featuring the number 1 offense in terms of explosive passing plays, the Eagles had their work cut out for them. Although on the flip side, the Eagles also entered as the number 1 defense preventing those plays, so something had to give.
Love going to take a shot, going deep down the far side, and intercepted. Oh, zips one. That is intercepted. Zack Baun. Love the last gasp attempt, going deep down the field into double coverage. It's intercepted.
You had to give the youth a ton of credit because here you had the youngest defense in the NFL, albeit, yes, the best defense in the NFL, but it's one thing to do that during the regular season and another thing entirely to do that during the playoffs. Like Quinyon Mitchell, who finally registered his first career interception in the game. Although personally, the best part for me was seeing what Nolan Smith did. Come on, the dude was easily the best player on defense against Green Bay, racking up 5 pressures, 4 hurries, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss, making Nolan the youngest player in Eagles history to record multiple sacks in a playoff game. FYI, at the time, he was just 23 years old. And better yet, he was able to do that against Jordan Love, who had only taken 14 sacks the entire season, which was good for second fewest in the NFL. So, yeah, Sirianni took the words right out of my mouth.
Hey, this guy, I love this fucking guy that I'm going to give this ball to. I fucking love this guy because he plays so fucking, but he is just a nasty, violent football player. and he played his ass off today. Nolan Smith.
How can you not? Yet as good as the defense was, the offense showed a good bit of rust. For example, Hurts started out 6 for 6 for 39 yards and a touchdown, but then went 0 for 7 while taking 2 sacks and totaling just 7 yards in the second quarter. To be fair, he was also coming off a concussion, and despite the less than ideal play, the Eagles still got the dub by 12 points. Heck, realistically, it could have been 19 points, but Saquon decided to slide at the end instead of going in to score.
At the end of the day, the opinions that's for you guys. Only thing that really matters is how we win. Whether we throw for 400 yards, we rush for 400 yards, or we win the game 3-0. I don't give a to be honest. I just want to win.
Okay, it's not standard, but, it was okay. We need to be great at it.
But ultimately, playoff football is about winning. First wild card win since, for a minute now, so that's big.
By the way, what Jalen was talking about there is totally legit, because that home wildcard win was the first since 2006 when Jeff Garcia led Philly to beat the Giants. Yes, the passing game struggles brought up some questions and even led to a viral clip of A.J. Brown taking out the book Inner Excellence during the game. But while the national media tried to make it a big storyline, a little fact-checking would show that A.J. had been doing this all year. Of course, then there was Jake Elliott, who continued to stress people out with his inconsistent kicking, but overall, the Birds won and advanced by a score of 22-10. FYI, later we would find out that that's the exact same score that the Packers lost the vote on to try to ban the tush push, but you're right, that's a story for a whole nother day. If anything, the biggest blow was losing Nakobe Dean, who suffered a torn patellar tendon later in the game and would be out the rest of the postseason. Which, was a huge loss considering Nakobe was the best graded run defender. And seeing how the Packers exploited backup Oren Burks late in the game, there was some concern for how Rams head coach Sean McVay might try to dial up some trickery to capitalize in the divisional round. At the same time, Philly was helped out by a little extra bulletin board material when pass rusher Jared Verse said he hates Eagles fans, leading to a little smack talk before the game from Jalen Carter.
Probably not the smartest thing to say when you're coming to Philadelphia. I've been on the other side, and even if I felt some type of way, probably wouldn't give him any extra fuel.
Now, to Verse's credit, he played incredibly well in the divisional round, as Los Angeles ended up sacking Jalen Hurts 7 times during the game. Goes without saying, that was not very good, yet when you consider the Eagles had bad penalties in bad times, dropped multiple interceptions, gave up several big plays, missed extra points, and receivers dropped passes that they almost always catch and still won, once again, it spoke to how resilient the squad was. Granted, the national media and everybody else was still in denial.
That game yesterday, let's say it was 130 plays. The Rams definitely won the majority of those plays. If it's not for 2 strips by the Eagles defense and basically the 3 long touchdown runs, I would say you take away those 5-6 plays there, the Rams football team won the majority of the plays on the field in the game that day.
We can win in a lot of different ways, and like you said, resiliency is kind of our specialty. Adversity, fighting adversity. Nick talked about adversity this week a lot, and you never know what it's going to be in the game, like before the game, but when it happens, how are you going to respond? And I think we responded pretty well.
For real, how many times was it one phase of the team picking up the other one and just figuring out ways to get it done? And just like earlier in the season in LA, Saquon Barkley took advantage of the porous Rams run defense, as he ripped off runs of 78 and 62 yards in the snow to seemingly put the game on ice and give Philly a 13-point lead. However, a blazing fast score for Matthew Stafford and then a botched possession by the Birds quickly resulted in LA being 13 yards away from winning the game. That is, until the Breadman showed up on the 2 biggest snaps of the game with a sack and a pressure to send him to the NFC Championship.
And I saw it, I was like, he killed. It was only a matter of time before he was going to kill that right guard. No disrespect to the right guard.
3rd and 2. Stafford in trouble. He's sacked.
Oh my gosh, that dude is just a monster.
Man, he's a beast, man. He's a beast, man. He wreaks havoc. He makes my job really easy, man.
Yeah, that's the games we're gonna need from him. Like we already know the type of player he is, and he got it done. Like I said, it was only a matter of time before somebody came up with that big play, and it was him.
We know how good Jalen Carter is, but what he did in that game was legendary. I mean, JC played 68 of the 70 snaps while being doubled on over half of the pass rush snaps, but still was able to record a 12% pressure rate while making 5 tackles, 3 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, a batted pass, and a crucial forced fumble late in the game. Plus, I think everyone realizes it was a critical sack in the final drive on Stafford. Yet when you really break it down, Sean McVay was in complete shock that the Rams couldn't get it done, and that's courtesy of the Breadman.
29-28 is all that I saw. There was nothing you could tell me
Dylan, that wasn't going to go down like that. And he did that. And unfortunately, we had a miscommunication on the 3rd and 4 that put us back, where you book a special player when we probably could have converted on that play. It moves you back, and I won't talk about what I thought occurred on the 4th down, but he led us. He put us in a position to be able to win that football game, and that's who he is, and I'm not at all surprised. And we all had the expectation with him leading the way that we were going to win that game, and he did everything, and he did his part to put us in a position to be able to do that.
Look how huge the Jalen Carter sack is. Watch the tight end up top. Out and twirl, slip. That ball is going to go there. Does he score? I don't know. Probably, but maybe it gets down to inside the 2 or 3 yard line. If not for that sack, man, that is a enormous game-saving play. That guy's going to run away. Whew. What a huge play. Huge individual efforts today.
No, I just been read the O-line the whole game, and I thought I had a good rush in mind, and I did that rush and got a sack on it.
Closer than it needed to be, but 28-22 got it done. And thanks to the Commanders shocking the Detroit Lions on the road, Philly was about to host the NFC Championship game. Of course, as soon as that happened, it wasn't even a question about getting tickets to attend that game, especially given the extra familiarity and all the extra smack talk before it.
The beautiful thing is I got to go through Philly. And I remember, after we lost to Washington, some of those guys were looking at us and saying that we're going to see you again, and here we are.
Let me tell you, I love playing. I love playing on the road. And I love playing here too, but there's not a better feeling, and Detroit had a great crowd, but to walk out of that place and it's quiet. That's the best feeling in the world, to go into somebody else's house and it's quiet. So if it's at home, if it's on the road, it doesn't matter. We're going to get down the way we get down.
Saquon, touchdown. Barkley, touchdown. Hurts gets a shove. Hurts in. Hurts to throw. Near side, lets her rip. Brown, delay. Hurts in. Touchdown. They're going to go, and Hurts is in. Barkley outside. Barkley, touchdown. Shipley is in.
Well, Washington's defensive coordinator was right. They got down, and they got down in a hurry. I mean, when you think about the fact that the 55 points were the most points Philly scored in a game since the Monday Night Massacre in 2010, which also happened to be against Washington, that really put it into perspective. Yeah, come on, what the Birds did in the NFC Championship game wasn't supposed to happen according to the expert analysts. Remember, all the talk during the lead-up was about how the Eagles having the shaky offense and would the defense be able to have an answer for the hottest offense in the NFL in Washington. But yeah, I'd say 8 touchdowns en route to the most points by any team in a championship game and the second most points scored by the Eagles ever in the playoffs shut up quite a few doubters.
7 rushing touchdowns. The tush-push, whereas the Bills couldn't convert them, and we've seen other teams fail trying to do it. It might be just a Philly thing. It might be because of the offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland. It might be because of the way that Jalen Hurts' body is built. It might be just because they practice it so darn much. 7 rushing touchdowns in an NFC championship game. The most ever in a championship game round was 5. They added 2 more after the fact, with one of them being from Will Shipley, who is their backup's backup in the running backs room, who everyone was so excited for to see get it, the rookie out of Clemson. Complete domination, and if you're Kansas City and you think you're going to cakewalk to that 3rd Super Bowl win, you're going to be watching game tape, and you're going to be seeing a team that can bully you, a team that's probably a little bit more physical in the ground game, and a team that has absolutely no fear piling it on. Philadelphia was very impressive yesterday. They saved their best offensive game for the most important one.
Can you complete the passes when the defenses are going to play in those one-on-one situations? Jalen Hurts did that. Yep. A.J. Brown did that.
If you are still critical of Jalen Hurts, then what are you doing? I said what Albert Einstein said. You judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. It'll live its whole life believing it's stupid. People are judging Jalen Hurts by things other than winning, and that's why everybody has become stupid in that sense. Imagine standing at a pond looking at fishes and saying, climb! Climb already. That's what we look like when we tell Jalen Hurts, throw for 5 touchdowns already. Because Jalen Hurts don't do that. He wins. And he already told you. He only cares about winning.
For all the chatter about how Jalen Hurts getting injured in the last matchup against Washington didn't play a factor, or at least people, trying to make that argument, it was nice to finally get the answer to that. But make no mistake, this was a squad that had some flat-out warriors gunning it out. Since starting center Cam Jurgens was out with a back injury, meaning left guard Landon Dickerson had to slide over and then Tyler Steen filled in for Dickerson. Granted, they did a really good job in different roles, but the most impressive part to me was seeing when Landon had to leave the game with a knee injury that Jurgens gutted it out and played in the second half with a really bad back. And you can tell what it meant to him.
So proud of this team. Just want to say thanks to the trainers, Joe, Tom. It was a long week.
Yeah, I feel your emotions, Cam. What happened this week? We were all shocked by the back injury. When did it pop up for you? How did you work through it?
It's just, it's football, it's violence, so just fighting. And this team's got so much fight. I love it. We're going to win this next one.
Hey, way to fight for us. Hey, seriously, I appreciate you. Fight for us.
That was gritty. That was gritty of him. He hadn't practiced all week, really pushing through, and the resilience he showed coming in and being able to see the defense the way he was. Loved how he prepared. Obviously, the preparation showed, and man, he's been great all year. I won't have that reflective moment on myself, but I'll have that reflective moment on Cam and saying, yeah, you got one bad snap to start the season off, and all the questioning and all the things that were thrown his way, and so end up being a Pro Bowler and having all the things to deal with replacing Jason Kelce. He's done a great job.
I don't need to tell you, but heck, just look at how Cam Jurgens appeared after the game, and you can tell how much pain he was in. But no pain, no gain, and we finally saw what a full complimentary game might look like if the Birds put it together. With the Eagles winning 55-23, the defense forcing 4 turnovers, and Quinyon Mitchell getting some revenge on Terry McLaurin with a fourth-quarter INT. Meanwhile, Nolan Smith registered another sack to give him 4 during the playoffs, making him Philadelphia's single postseason record holder for the most sacks in franchise history.
Grit. Man, we talk about, man, if they don't score, they don't win. And, they put up some points, but, man, we go out there and play defense with pride, man. And that's what I love about Philly. And it's just like the city that we live in, man. We play defense tough and hard. In
other franchise history, Nick Sirianni became the first head coach to make 2 Super Bowls, although my personal favorite history from that game was the Eagles nearly being awarded a score for the Commanders continuing to jump off sides and try to stop the tush push.
Washington has been advised that at some point the referee can award a score if this type of behavior happens again. For now, it's a replay of second down.
Not gonna lie, I didn't realize that could actually happen at the time, but also the absolute best sporting experience event to attend in person that I've ever been to in my life. Crazy, I know.
Let's go! Go Bills!
That left one game, the big one, a rematch against the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs. And look, I expected the Eagles to win. A lot of us did. It's just that I wasn't one of those saying it was a blowout waiting to happen.
These guys can't f with us. They really can't. I don't care how many times they've been here. I don't care how many times they won it. They haven't seen a team like us.
We witnessed the greatest Eagles team in the history of the franchise after beating the brakes off of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid while also breaking the body and spirit of everyone on the Kansas City Chiefs. Let me ask you, and I did this immediately following the game, but again, you take some time thinking about it now. What was the point? What was the moment that you really knew the game was out of reach for Kansas City? For me, I'd say it was once Cooper DeJean came up with the interception off of Mahomes and ran it back for 6 in the second quarter. Because come on his birthday at 22 years old and the first interception of his career being a pick 6 in the Super Bowl, you can't write a better story than that. Like, this dude is a legit top 2 and not 2 slot cornerback. What's crazy is the Chiefs didn't convert a third down until there was less than 3 minutes left in the third quarter. But like the Eagles were already up 34-0. However, as ridiculous as that stat is, the most unbelievable one for me is the fact that KC had fewer total yards, 23, than Philly had points, 24 at halftime. I mean, this unit literally had the best defensive efficiency rating through 3 quarters in Super Bowl history. Yes, you heard me right. Better than the 2000 Ravens, better than the 1985 Bears, and better than the 2002 Buccaneers. Granted, some late, meaningless scores and stat padding left the Birds to finish the game in 4th all time, but the game was so far out of reach, who cares? Oh yeah, the best part is that Fangio didn't have to dial up a single blitz the entire game long.
and the entire defensive line. It was so dominating, it has to have a ripple effect on the Dallas Cowboys and the Niners and the Rams and the Packers and how they draft. Does it not? Like, how do you block that? I mean, it was really, really good during the regular season. What was that? I mean, we talk quarterbacks all the time on this show, yet Philly humiliated Patrick Mahomes. They could not block the Eagles.
Shout out to Vic Fangio, man. That man, I know he old, but man, he got so much knowledge left in there, and I can't wait to just take it from him and just take all the knowledge that he could give to the game, man. He's an amazing coach.
The Chiefs did not cross midfield until 2:22 left in the third quarter. Like, every time that I see that or read that or just reminded of it, it's crazy. But Mahomes had a 10.7, yes, 10.7 passer rating, thanks to getting picked off by Cooper DeJean and Zack Baun, which then led to 14 points. And those numbers speak for themselves, yet when you consider that through Kansas City's first 9 drives, they only got 43 yards with 6 punts and effectively 3 turnovers, just amplifies how dominant the defense really was. I mean, sacking Mahomes 6 times, the most ever in his entire career, was great, but then you think about Bryce Huff was a healthy scratch. Your $51 million pass rusher was a healthy scratch, and you still had that type of productivity. I'm telling you, it's just one of the greatest performances from a defense ever. Meanwhile, Brandon Graham made his return despite re-tearing his triceps during that game, and Nolan Smith tore his triceps a little later as well. Yet the most rewarding aspect was once again for the 100th time Jalen Hurts being doubted and proving haters wrong.
I think we've seen the best of Jalen Hurts. Yes, I think that's fair to say. That 2022 season and playoff stretch, that's the high. Yeah. I don't think we're going to recapture that.
Picked up, Hurts going deep, has a man, he is caught!
Let Jalen Hurts beat you. You ain't been balling.
When he has a very clear understanding, like, oh, you're playing my guys one-on-one, and I could throw the ball on an outbreaker or a corner route or a go route to A.J. Brown. It's kind of what Washington did in the NFC Championship game. He is not going to get that against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Hurts lets it go, complete A.J. Brown, he's in!
Force them into throwing the ball.
Hurts going deep for it all, DeVonta Smith, he has got it!
Well, I can't control what these people think, but if it takes all the hate and all the scrutiny and all the different opinions for me to be a world champion, then keep it coming.
The dude outplayed Patrick Mahomes in back-to-back Super Bowls, while winning Super Bowl MVP with 221 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Now, the Chiefs did eventually make the score look respectable with a 40-22 finish, but for anyone watching, you know just how lopsided it was. Also, shout out to Jake Elliott, because despite his struggles, he went a perfect 8 for 8 on field goals and extra points in New Orleans. Like, we always knew the potential was there with him and with everyone, but the question was, how did they get there?
I think we just stuck to our process. I think a lot of things got blown, kind of 2 and 2. The outside world, we just, had an opinion on what was going on and everything there, and we just stuck to our process and got better from it. Did some things a little differently, got better from a couple things. I think at the end of the day, you saw this team embrace adversity throughout the entire year.
One of my favorite quotes from Coach Sirianni is, you can't be great without the greatness of others. And you look at any long run throughout the season, any big play throughout the season, you see multiple guys making big plays.
Kudos to the fellas, man. That was the best team in Eagles history. And they deserve all the credit in the world for what they were able to accomplish, sending BG riding off into the sunset and getting the second Lombardi trophy in Philly's history. But what do you think? We're coming full circle here to the original question that I asked, but having rewatched the season, all the storylines, the wild ups and downs, everything else there, would you say this Philadelphia Eagles team was a top 5 team of all time? Personally, I'd say yes. Although either way, as long as they have the core pieces, I wouldn't bet against them doing it again.
Let's run this back.